Hi, everyone. Hello. Hi. Welcome. Hello. We're just waiting for our guest. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Thursday Night Live. We're just waiting for our guest. Hi, everyone. Thank you for watching. We're just waiting for Daniel. Hi, Daniel. Ooh, I'm very close today. Nice to see you. Hi, everyone. I'm Alex, and this is Instagram Live on Thursday at 7:30. And my guest tonight is Daniel, and he's below me. Daniel is a counselor with Catholic Family Service. And so we're really excited to chat with you tonight. We're doing Instagram Live every week at 7:30 on Thursday nights. And this is an opportunity for us to connect with the Calgary community in a different way than we have before, given that most people are at home and on their phones and looking for ways to connect. And so Instagram Live is one of those things that we're doing, and we're really excited to have Daniel today because he, along with being a counselor, is also a father, and we thought that many of us have fathers in our life, and it would be wonderful to have Daniel talk a bit about his own experience and also to share maybe what he's learned through his work and just through his life about being a dad and especially being a dad right now. So we're going to start off, and I'll just ask Daniel a few questions, and then he's going to tell us a bit about what he's going to talk about today. And then at the end, if you have any questions for Daniel or comments about what things have been like for you or fathers in your life, then please feel free to comment or share. So let's get started. Daniel, hi.
Hey, good to see you. Thanks. I'm excited to be able to chat today.
We're happy you're here. So how are you doing?
I am doing well. Today, it goes up and down, but really I'm doing really well. Excited to chat about being a dad and all of the things around that as well. So,
Yeah,
mm,
that up and down that you describe is something we've talked about quite a few times on here, and I think
mhm,
is so part of the human experience right now that you can't sort of count on how you're going to feel on any given day, and that's something a lot of people are going through. Um,
exactly.
yeah. What's different in your family? So I happen to know you're working from home. Tell us about that. What is that like?
Yeah, so I mean, there's been a lot of changes in our family. So there's, um, you know, at the same time as this has all happened, we've had my wife also return to work from
Yeah.
maternity leave a couple weeks ago. So there's been a lot of adapting that has needed to happen over over the past little while, and taking care of the kids while working full time. There's a lot that goes into that, from scrambling, switching who's going into a meeting,
Yeah.
and who's spending time with the kids. So yeah, I mean, a lot has changed. I've also at the same time have been able to be at home pretty close to 24/7, right? Like
Yeah.
it's being demanded of us from the public health authority, and it's kind of nice to be told to stay home with the kids
Yeah.
at the same time. So yeah, a lot of different things have changed over time for sure.
Yeah. Isn't that this like funny thing of like, I'm sorry, I'm just in our lives there other outside of after high school, for most of us, there are never really times in our life where we get to stay home with the people we love or the people that we live with all the time, whether they're roommates or family or and so it's sort of this really mixed bag of things happening because it's this chance to stay home, but there's so much going on in that, and so it's for many people it's not ideal circumstances to be staying home. As you said, both you and your wife are now working.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you hit it there, right? There's this opportunity inherent in having this like uh, weird space where you can just spend time with your family, but there's so many things that are in that.
Yeah.
So it's about this opportunity and then also this challenge, right? And it's always about adapting um, as we go. So,
Yeah. Yeah. How are your kids doing with adapting as you go?
oh, that's a good question. And just for a little bit of background, I have, or me and my wife, we have two children. Our daughter is 4, and we have a son who's turning 1 on Mother's Day, actually.
Wow.
Um, yeah, so that's this weekend. We're pretty excited about that. Um, so it's been really interesting to see both of their reactions. Our son, I think he's doing really well. There's a lot of kind of milestones he's reaching, and it's fun to watch him kind of grow into himself, develop his little personality. He loves playing with balls right now. He's always passing around balls. And our daughter, she's the most amazing little human being. She's so social all the time, and she's big. I call her leaderful as well.
Wait, you call her
She
what?
leaderful.
Oh,
Yeah, so she's quite the little leader, and she'll let you know like what she's feeling, when she's feeling it,
yeah.
and she'll put you to task for different things as well. And to that end, preschool was really helpful for him.
Yeah.
She got to have that social interaction. She loved it. She had her group of friends. She can name everybody in her classroom.
Yeah.
Um, so being outside of that, I think it's really affected her.
Yeah.
And just that jarring, um, you know, here you're out of routine, things are changing. All of a sudden, you can't be around people.
Yeah.
Um, our family is one that shows a lot of affection as well. So a lot of hugging
Yeah.
and holding hands and things like that. So I think not being able to be close to people, the physical
Yeah.
distancing, is one thing that our daughter got right away.
Yeah.
So she would run up, if she's chasing a ball, she would stop immediately if somebody was there. But I think it's because it was so important to her,
Yeah.
being close to people, that she got it so
Yeah.
quickly. So there's been different things that have been a challenge for her, but she's soldiered through it and has done such an amazing job. And yeah, it's tough not to be proud of your kids in a time like this, where
I bet.
you think about, I think about like some of the challenging things that I went through as a kid, and um, there was nothing where the whole world shut down,
Right.
and it couldn't be close to anybody, especially at such a critical age as her. So to see how she's adapting to it and
Yeah.
really doing well with it is pretty cool. It's inspiring in a way to see your little kiddos work through stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's thanks for sharing that. I think we did have a teenager on last week, and she talked about how it's affecting teens, and it sort of strikes me that anyone in these sort of different ages of development go through it so differently, and she was speaking to how challenging it is, even for a youth. Their lives are really sort of planned out for them in terms of their day, and same with little ones. I mean, there's a lot more work for you that goes into keeping structure in a kid's life, but they come to really rely on that structure really quickly, right? Like it's what they can count on, and so when that's completely changed for them, I think they feel lost in their own way, right? And then all of a sudden the onus is on you as the parent to create that structure for them again in a way that feels good to them and to you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and she's done such an amazing job at that. And there's definitely been challenges in between there, right? Different behaviors and frustrations that pop up
Yeah.
as a result, and it's just about patiently working through that with her. or impatiently sometimes
Yeah.
as well.
I think that's something a lot of people can relate to.
Yeah.
So maybe this is like the segue into what you're going to talk about. What do you think's different about being a dad right now, or what comes up for you around fatherhood right now?
Yeah, so it's a huge topic. But like when we were discussing, like you asked me to come on. And initially, it was kind of out of my comfort zone doing something like this. But fatherhood's such a big topic, and I think that so many of the things that just around fatherhood in general apply to fatherhood now,
Yeah.
right? There's these different struggles and challenges. Ways that we view fatherhood that happen from before that are magnified now as well.
Okay.
And I think about it because all fathers are different and they approach things differently. Their family structures support them differently. And where I'm coming from is my own place as a father as well, right?
Yeah.
And I actually had a conversation with my wife. Maybe it was today, maybe it was a week ago.
Yeah.
I don't know. Times all come together. But I was watching this Joe Rogan podcast.
Yeah.
And he's quite a popular podcaster. I think he has a lot of like male viewers.
Yeah.
But one of the things he was talking about was naming children. And he's like, well, childbearing is such a one-sided process. Like, of course, I'm going to let my wife name my child, right? It's her responsibility because she's like done all of this work and different things. And I heard that and I was like, I wonder if that's the case, because with me and my wife, we had like quite a process where we talked about it like consistently. Yeah. It was something we worked on, and then so I brought that to my wife. I was like, should I have let you just name the child and not have any input? Like, is that something I should have done? And she's like, no, Daniel, like I married you and we're going through this process together, right? Like it's not I'm the mom, I'm the lone parent, like we're going through this process together. I value your advice. I want you to be involved from the start to the finish, right? And I think as I talk about fatherhood, that's really where I'm coming from, is a place where fathers aren't kind of like an add-on and doing things kind of as they can or after the fact. I've really, and I come from a few fathers, like my father and my grandfather as well, who are super involved men as well. And we've been fortunate also to have women in our lives who really invite us in to being fathers and to engage that role and be partners in raising our kids. So I wanted to like kind of talk about it in terms of like where I'm coming from as a father myself, and I think it's important. And the research now, there's a lot of information around the importance of fathers in children's lives.
Right. Yes.
And I think additionally, one of the big things that they bring up there is that a lot of fathers come into fatherhood thinking that it's natural for women. They raise their kids. There's these mysterious hormone-y things that are happening, and they just know what to do, and fathers just have to learn, right? Yeah. Over time. And
I would even say that society puts that on women generally, right? This idea that women are innate caregivers and always know what to do, and fathers have to learn it. Yeah. This is
exactly. And then and that was exactly the thing of the podcast that I was talking about, right? There's this kind of underlying assumption there that like the women know what they're doing. Don't disrupt them, and then like learn over time, and you can like pick your places, pick your so I think that's a really good point. Alec, thanks for bringing that up.
So what do you see, how does that come into play how does that show up in a lot of families, do you think? Do you think that dads or caregivers who are dads and fathers, do you think that they feel tentative or like are don't know how to jump in or where to jump in, or not every couple might communicate that. So do you think dads feel nervous to dive in?
Yeah, well, I think if there's this underlying assumption that that one person knows what you're doing, the other person really is starting from like a position of like, I don't know, there might be a little bit of that. I think, from my experience, what I'm saying is the ability to be invited in on a daily, weekly, monthly basis from my partner to be engaged and involved was super helpful, and is super helpful, even if I already feel the desire and the will to really be there for my kid. I think that invitation just goes such a long way, and it's a powerful thing to have that for sure. Does that does that make
what I started thinking about is so if I'm a mom and I want to invite my a father in, what words do I use? How do I do that?
Oh man, that's a really good question.
Oh no.
I think when with my wife, my partner, she's quite upfront and clear about that, right? Like, no, Daniel, like it's not just my decision to make; it's our decision to make. Like we're in this together.
Right.
And it's a very clear invitation in that way,
Okay.
where it's just that shared meaning, shared purpose in a relationship. And when I think about what's been helpful for me, I think it's those things, and also the unsaid things as well, right? The ability to spend time with your kids and just feel confident in that and feel like you can just go and make the most of it. I know when our son came, I took my daughter on a camping trip to give my wife and our son some space so that they can like orient themselves, learn different things, and is really a fantastic trip for me and my daughter. Which now actually this year she's saying, Mom, we have to go on a camping trip. And she really wants to do a mother-daughter camping trip, which I think is fantastic. I think that like, being a father is really important to acknowledge the importance of doing it as a team and wanting to be a part of that.
And it sounds like that can come from both sides, or it needs to come from both sides, right? That everyone's sort of trying their best, because it's never perfect, to show up in a way that we're in this together.
Exactly. I mean, that's a big thing too, right? It's trying your best to work together for that, and to encouraging one another to be the best parent that you can be, because the families show up in all shapes and sizes, right? So whatever that looks like, I think that's at least an important piece of that puzzle for sure.
What do you think is unique to fathers right now, or what are you noticing about yourself or friends or other dads, that what are they struggling with? What do you think they're struggling, or even clients? What are you seeing? Feeling?
Yeah, it's interesting. And so, one of the things that this quarantine has allowed me to do is have an excuse to grow a beard. And I'm struggling with the criticism of the beard.
You and every other person who can grow facial hair.
I know. I thought I was being unique and cool, and then I walked out the door for the first time and I realized every other person had to. No, but I mean, there's a lot of different struggles, right? There's some really good, like I noted, there's some really good parts to this. Working at home, on one of my breaks, I was able to take a break and go outside to the front lawn where my kids were hanging out and see my son's first steps. right? I'm able to go out for a bike ride with my daughter in between my work hours and different things like that. But on the other side, there's some really challenging things, right? I think of the way my daughter is struggling with some of the social interactions in her life, right? I think about what do I do about that? You know, how do I support my daughter? Because like in the end, what you want as a father is for your kids to feel safe, secure, to be able to grow and ultimately be independent and strong, right, and give back in their own way. But then you see them come up against these challenges that are created by COVID, right?
Yeah.
And the one that I'm specifically referring to is these social challenges, right? And there's a lot more of them. Okay. And you think, you know, what do you do with that? How do I support them when the structures seem stacked against you?
Yeah.
Right? And your child. And you just kind of, at times, I think you feel a little bit helpless.
Yes.
It's like, well, you know, you think about what it was like before, right? And you can get stuck in that thinking quite often. It's like, well, man, before, you know, when she was struggling with these peers, it would just be a blip on the radar because she would have her peers at preschool.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And she would have her grandparents' house to go to get a different perspective.
Right.
She would be able to do this, go there, and get all of those factors that were really helpful to the kids. So I think at times you feel a little bit helpless. And you know, one of the other things that I always think about, and you can see behind me just like a big bookshelf in my office, and a lot of those are parenting books.
Okay, yeah, fair enough.
Some of that is due to my role, some of that is due to, like, in my profession, some of that is due to being a parent.
Yeah.
But in our world today, you know, you don't have to have books on your shelf. There's the internet, different things, and there's a lot of information that's out there, right? And saying you need to parent this way.
Yes.
Right. You can attachment theory. The chaos versus rigidity. You need to float in between those perfectly. You need to get down to your child's level and help them regulate their emotions. And there's all sorts of advice. But the advice now isn't just advice, right? It's saying these scientific studies have proven that this is the best way to parent.
Right.
So when you're confronted with a situation like COVID, you're confronted with reality versus the scientific best way to do things, right?
Yeah.
And that becomes really challenging. If the kind of classic saying is, if you know better, do better.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. And I think a lot of people hold themselves to that, and it can become so stressful, and so self-defeating at times, right? I see this with clients all the time, and I call it shitting on yourself.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I should do this. You know, parenting should look this way.
Yeah.
And it becomes this, like, really, I don't know, you, as a parent, you keep doing the best you can anyways. But in the back of your mind, you start doubting yourself. Man, like, the other person is probably listening to all this advice because they know better. They're saying better, right? And that might even be the temptation to apply to me as I'm talking about all of this.
Yeah.
Like, you know, this is how it should be. This is how you should be. It's like, oh, I bet you Daniel's doing it right.
I bet he's a really good dad.
Yeah, no, I'm screwing up just like everybody else. But I think that's, like, you know, when I say things are magnified with COVID, that's what I mean is this is something that's happening in our society anyways. This is the right way to parent. Science says it. Do it this way and you'll get this outcome. They're all correlational studies, but they're always worded in a way that if you do this, it'll lead to this. So with COVID, it's just expanded that feeling, right? It's, oh yeah, we know that screen time as you know, less screen time is scientifically proven for this, this, and this, and this outcome. But as a parent, oh shoot, I'm doing work that's uninterruptible right now, and my kid needs to be in front of a screen. Or like, do they need to be in front of a screen? Can I be really that creative parent that comes up with something super novel, and then my 4-year-old child's like on top of that for the hour that I need and time it out perfectly? So I mean, I think that's really one of the huge challenges that parents are facing, is this right or wrong mentality. And I often think about like now in comparison to the old days, you know, or the old days.
When is that, Daniel?
But I mean, before you'd get parenting advice, right? But it would come from parents. It would come from grandparents. It would always be anecdotal, and you can really take some of it as like, oh, that's a good idea. I don't want my mom to know that's a good idea because I don't want her to feel too good about herself, but I'll take it. But other things you can be like, well, you know, that's not a great idea. I feel okay with not doing that right now for my but the transition right now is, no, it's not just somebody suggesting that this is a good idea. Oh yeah, hi mom.
Hi Daniel's mom.
Hi, mom. Hi, you've had so many good ideas. But it's not just a suggestion that this might be a good idea. It's saying science says that this is the right way to parent.
Which feels like way more pressure than a family member who's been through it saying to you. But if the family member said it's backed up by science, don't mess this up, that may feel really bad.
Exactly.
You know, but if someone's saying this worked for me, that could feel a lot less threatening to a parent, right? Do you think, Daniel, there's I'm just curious if you think there's a unique so you've talked quite a bit about parenting, and I think Amy said that she can relate a lot to what you're talking about, but I wondered if there's do you think there's something inherent about being a father that's different, or do you think fathers or maybe, you know, what I've always wondered is, you know, everything you said about what fathers want for their kiddos, is that people, because they don't articulate it as much, that maybe people don't know that's how fathers are feeling. I don't know. Is there anything to that, or around the unique experience of a father?
Right. I think, and I might, so I don't know if this is going to answer your question directly, and you can refocus me if you want. I've been needed to be refocused before. But I think one of the unique experiences of fathers is the way that we take care of ourselves in order to be able to do what we need to do. So, you know, I think about the idea of self-care, which is often talked about, right? It's kind of become like this common hot button topic. It's like, oh, you just need a little bit of self-care and we'll be supported, right? And I think at times fathers are doing really similar work, right? And there's research showing, like from the Gottman Institute, for example, that you know, the idea of the double shift, right? That women have. So they're working full time, and then they have all of these other roles in the household, like parenting, chores, unpaid labor. I think what the research is showing is that a lot of fathers and men are taking up these different roles, right? I think it's clear that men aren't quite there yet, on par with where the female counterparts are. But I think since that original study, like the one in 1989 that was done about the double shift, men have increased the quality time spent with children. They've multiplied that by 3 since that study is done, and the housework. They've doubled the amount of housework that they've been doing, which is admittedly less than where women are at right now, right? Culturally, like I'm talking about mainstream, like all family structures are different, but I mean this is something that men are taking on, right? So the need for self-care, I think, is really important. And I think historically men aren't very good at taking care of themselves, and like you said, maybe communicating their needs of what they need.
Yeah.
And though even the whole concept of self-care, I think, is a really interesting one as I speak about it with people. You know, going through counseling school, I'll call it counseling school, and an undergraduate in behavioral science, we talk a lot about self-care. And through 7 years of school, like I don't think it really kind of ever the idea hit home to me. Oftentimes people would talk about this notion of like, oh, you know, I'm feeling really tired or stressed out of taking care of all of these other people in my life, so I need to have a bubble bath and wine, right? And so it becomes kind of like this nice idea of taking time for yourself, but I'm not sure that it resonates in the way that it needs to. With a kind of concrete action. And what I'm talking about here is that I think, you know, when you think about self-care as bubble bath and wine, or watching Netflix and having all the chips that you want to have, it becomes more indulgence than self-care. And you know, I should be careful here, because I'm not saying that indulgence and time for you. I'm not saying that's necessarily bad all the time, because I think it can be really helpful, right? To just like have some space away. You know, I play video games, and I like to just like bury myself in the basement and play video games every once in a while just to like recharge. But I think the concept of self-care, if you look at what people are getting at, right? What the purpose of it is. It's to be able to recenter and find, you know, create definitions of yourself, right? So that you can bring the self to your life and to the lives around you, right? So that you can continue caring for and nurturing those relationships around you, right? So I think to that end, self-care is often about doing the really difficult things. Things like, you know, picking up your bike and going for that really difficult bike ride that you didn't want to go on because you were just tired. Picking up that book that you've wanted to read for a while, to learn about this new topic. And doing those things that are challenging to you, but also increase that sense of self. And you know, what we know about men is that they're often driven by mastery, right? Mastery and competency. And oftentimes when we think about fatherhood, and one of those pieces, right, we were talking about this before, is the notion that women were just kind of born to be moms, right? They go through this hormonal change while they're pregnant, and they don't know what to do, and then they're like, oh, I gotta learn, and that comes down to competency, right? And I think there's this need for competency and mastery, and that's where I think self-care is really important. It's not only having that beer on the patio in your backyard, it's also working on that garden in the backyard as you develop this new skill. So I think it's kind of a different direction, and kind of like what's different in this whole parenting thing for men. I think are social roles, like men as fathers, their roles have changed in the family structure, and they're taking on more, and as a result, some of the ways that we need to take care of ourselves needs to change over time.
Shifted.
So
we're running out of time, but what would you suggest? How would you sort of talked about diving into something that might be hard or increases a sense of self? What might you suggest for where does someone start in that regard? That's probably a big question. But do you have any, where might someone start with? Would it just be diving into something like that? But it would probably be different for a different person, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, it's different for everybody. It's a really good question too, because, you know, this is a question as a counselor, you know, you get asked a lot too, like, where do we even start? Like, I feel like this is a good idea. Like, what do? I feel like this isn't working out. You know, one example that I can think of, and I've actually been through like different mentoring groups, for example, like a men's mentoring group for my church that I go to.
Yeah.
And one of the things that all the guys had in common was like, oh, we're really bad at keeping in touch with friends.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh.
Like, how do we like maintain friendships and do that? Like, it was completely foreign to us. We had no clue how to do that, and we're still struggling with it now. But that's another story.
Yeah.
But this has also come up in different ways as well. And I have this friend. Me and my wife went to their wedding. And this guy, he just had a ton of friends at the wedding, and he, in every room he walks into, he's like the most popular guy ever. And you get into this way of thinking, it's like, oh, is something wrong with me, or is something better about him?
Yeah.
And I was really curious about it. I was like, where do you start to even get there, right? And he said that the beginning and the end point for him was doing 5-minute check-ins with his friends.
Whoa.
And that's all he does, is he just puts aside an hour of time a week, spread out over an entire week, and just does 5-minute check-ins with different friends.
Yeah.
So it's such a small starting point.
Yeah.
And also such a small end point for him. And I think that's a really big insight into, where do you start with something like that?
Yeah.
And I think starting small is, it's kind of cliche, but it's also such a powerful thing as well.
Yeah.
Because by thinking big, like, how do I get from here to there? Yeah. It can become quite self-defeating.
Sure.
It's like, if I need to get from here to there, that's going to be really challenging.
Yeah.
I might as well not even do that, because I
won't get there. Yeah.
I'm struggling with just the basics.
Yeah.
When often just the basics is the answer, right? Yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's actually a great segue. I usually talk about this at the end, but I think one of the things that Catholic Family Service has, we have a counseling program, rapid access counseling, which Daniel's a therapist in that program, as well as other programs. But another program I think that really supports what you were just talking about around connecting with other men, connecting with other fathers who are all trying to sort of find themselves and their roles, and where they fit in their family and where they fit in their kids' lives, and how to sort of nurture each other and their families, is our Fathers Moving Forward program, which is for young fathers to connect with other fathers. There's counseling and group work and a chance to really dig into some of that stuff I think that you're talking about, and you're pretty familiar with the program. Would you say that's sort of like what that outlet would support, that kind of connection? And
absolutely. And you think about how important the social connection is for fathers starting in the fathering journey, and young fathers as well. And I was involved in that program for a year, and I often just popped into the program, and I usually popped in at the beginning of the program, and we got to listen to music and just play some basketball in the gym there. And it was actually just a ton of fun, just to have some fun, chat, just talk about what it's like being a dad and while shooting hoops. It is a really great program.
So that program you can look into through our website, or calling Catholic Family Service, and you can get more information about that program. And I wondered if anyone has any questions for Daniel or comments. This is not something we get very often, but you never know. I see quite a few family members of Daniel's on here, and so they might have things to say. Daniel's mom was giving him the business on here. So, maybe and I think I've seen a couple comments that can sort of relate to what you've been talking about, Daniel, in terms of parenting. Any questions or comments from the audience before we close it up? For just good job, you did do a good job. Any other questions or comments for Daniel? Not looking like it. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me. I think it's really important to us at Catholic Family Service that we you've talked about many times that families come in all shapes and sizes, and I think it was really neat to hear a father's perspective of what's going on. And you obviously have a great brain because you're also a therapist, and so that was really a helpful perspective. But we really want to normalize for everyone that there's all kinds of stories of how people are doing, and Daniel's is one of them, and mine is one of them, and yours is one of them, and so we really appreciate you listening in tonight. And if you have any ideas for what you want to see on Instagram Live, please get in touch with Catholic Family Service through our website, through Intake. Someone just said, awesome job. We'll talk to their partner about some of these concepts tonight.
Oh, not her partner.
We'll talk to someone else about this.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. But yeah, so thanks so much for watching, Daniel. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. Daniel's first Instagram Live. I suspect it won't be your last, but have a wonderful evening, and thanks for watching, everyone. Bye.
Thanks so much. See ya.
See you.